Okay.
Yes.
You want to start?
Thank you so much for meeting with us.
Of course,
Uh,
happy to do it. Sorry it took me so long to get back to you guys.
Oh,
No
no, no
worries. Yeah.
problem.
I got a lot going on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sure.
We've seen. Yeah.
Yeah, we tried to get in contact with a couple more people, and it's been pretty busy. I think we were able
Yeah,
to talk to one other member of the National Links Trust.
Chris.
Yeah,
Yeah, Chris.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
but other than that, everyone's been busy.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, might as well just get right into it.
Sure.
Start with some more like generic questions. Pivot from there.
Yep.
So what does East Potomac represent to you personally, and maybe broader to the future of public golf in the United States?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. East Potomac is such a unique place. Me personally, I've been in the golf business over 30 years, and I've never seen a location or facility like East Potomac. It is obviously the setting that it's in, being in the nation's capital, having all the amenities. A lot of golf courses don't have, all the amenities to kind of take you through the golfing journey. And what I mean by that is take you from a novice to potentially a, highly skilled golfer. We have miniature golf at East Potomac, and that's something anybody can play. You need no skills. You don't need clubs. You don't need anything to as a kind of on ramp to the game, and you can migrate from the miniature golf course to the practice putting greens to the three practice holes we have at East Potomac to the driving range, then to the short par three course, then to the white course, and then to the championship blue course. So it's such a great, I use that term on ramp. It's such a great on ramp to the game because it's everything anybody needs to be able to access the game. So it's accessible, it's affordable, it's in a fantastic location, and of the hundreds of thousands of people that visit unique visitors that visit East Potomac every year, it's used by golfers and non-golfers alike. It's a rest stop for bikers. It's a rest stop for people that are running, jogging around Ohio Drive on the peninsula. For folks that are at Haynes Point, people watch fireworks there. They look at cherry trees there. It's just I guess the best way to describe it, it's almost a community center that happens to have a golf course. So it's a really unique facility that's beloved by thousands and thousands of people in the district and outside the district. Every time I'm there, I get stopped by somebody that's, hey, I grew up playing golf here with my dad or my mom, or I when I was a young hill staffer making $10,000 a year, this is where I came to play golf. It's the only thing I could afford. So it's really great to hear those stories and to really see what the connection people have to that facility. It's really, really unique.
Yeah. I can definitely resonate with that because that's where I learned how to play golf. So that's
Yeah,
why. That's
yeah,
why honestly one of the main reasons we're doing this project is because
yeah,
of how passionate I am about East Potomac. So
yeah.
I guess we can move into the next question, which is as a PGA professional, how do you balance like preserving golf traditions while making the sport more accessible for I guess people in DC and more modern?
Yeah, no, that's a really another great question. It's something I talk about a lot. Um, that's one of the reasons why I've stayed in the municipal space because I want to bring the game to more people. And golf is hard enough as it is. I mean, you open up a rules book and it's a couple hundred pages thick. You need a team of lawyers to decipher 90% of what's in there. So there's a lot of no's in golf, and I think we've been kind of stuck in this box for so long that we need to start saying yes, and we can say yes at the municipal level, and be able to meet golfers where they are. So yeah, you see me, I got a private club logo on. I'm a member of a private club, but I play a lot of golf at municipal golf courses, and it's balancing the two. It's being able to, you know, honor those traditions, but also welcome new people and understand that culture might not that might be not be their culture, and that's okay. And it's okay to say, hey, you can listen to music, or you can wear flip flops, or you can bring your dog with you. And I think that's where municipal golf really serves its role is we can again meet golfers where they are. Obviously, you're not, excuse me, you're not going over to congressional with your pup and letting them run around the golf course, but that's congressional, and they, they have a standard and they have a way they want to operate their facility, and that's totally fine. But the majority of golfers don't have access to that to congressional. The majority of golfers do have access to East Potomac, and we can be more flexible, still honoring that tradition, still being respectful of the game and respectful of the other guests there that are on the facility, but allow people to kind of let their hair down a little bit. And I'm totally fine with that. Again, there's a time and a place for everything.
Slightly building off of that, like what are some misconceptions you hear about public golf courses and maybe East Potomac in particular?
Yeah, another great question. You guys did your homework. Yeah, it's something I've been fighting my entire career in the municipal space is the stigma around municipal golf. Conditions are going to be crap. Pace of play is going to be slow. Um, Architecture is going to be lacking. Those are the kind of the three things that I hear most. And I've done several renovations of golf courses or working on, whether it's a full restoration of a golf course or just trying to make the amenities better. Every stop I've ever made, that's what I've tried to do because I'm always trying to fight that stigma. You can still have standards and work at a municipal golf course. You can still have fun, engaging architecture at a municipal level. You don't need to have 6 hour rounds at a municipal golf course. So it's creating a culture of creating that culture where people respect the facility. You play quickly. You don't need to play well, but you can play quickly, and you can create a really fun and engaging experience. And it's difficult to balance, but you can do it. It just takes time and effort. You got to condition the golfers because they're used to doing certain things, and not understanding all the time, about just course etiquette and pace of play and things like that. So it's really conditioning your guest and working with your guests, and it takes time, and it can be done. I've been successful at it in multiple locations. I like to play quickly. I don't want to be on a golf course for 4.5 hours. I I just don't want to. I want to play in three hours and 15 minutes, but that's not always the case. But creating that culture and making sure people understand just the generic basic rules of maintaining pace, taking care of the golf course. And again, I think it all kind of ties together. I did a renovation in Anne Arundel County, and I was just talking to the GM that's working there last week, and we were talking about just operations in general. And he's like, "Hey, one of the great things I loved you guys did here was you made the fairways so wide, people aren't looking for golf balls anymore." And it all goes part and parcel. It's like, okay, this is what I'm looking for. How do I design a golf course that helps me with pace of play, that helps me with the overall enjoyment? So if you couple all those things together, it creates that culture you're looking for. But it's a challenge, and it takes time.
Yeah. So I guess moving on to like a more macro issue, especially with like the current political climate. So how's like the political controversy, especially surrounding President Trump, affected like the mission and the public image of the National Leagues Trust?
It hasn't affected our mission at all. We are still going to achieve our mission of affordable, accessible municipal golf, bringing more people to the game. Thankfully, we have at least the framework of a deal with the administration around Rock Creek and Langston, and those are two great facilities that we can do a lot of good there. We're already focusing on how do we expand our workforce development program? How do we create a new internship program for maybe college students? How do we do more sustainability efforts at those facilities? So, um, the political winds are what they are. I certainly can't can't change what happens at the political level, um, and certainly won't try to. But we will deal with the hand we've been dealt, and we're going to make the best of it. We're going to continue our mission. Has not changed our mission at all. My message to the team, going back to the middle of last year when all this kind of started, is keep your head down, do your job. We know what our mission is, and we're going to achieve our mission. Whatever obstacles get put in front of us, we're going to work through it and continue to achieve our mission.
I want to preface this next one by saying when Trevor and I decided to do this project, we got a little bit of pushback where other projects didn't, I think largely due to like the image people have about golf. But
Yeah.
how do you respond to people who believe golf courses on public land are like outdated and not valuable to the broader community?
Yeah, and again, another great question, and I think how we respond to that is we make sure the facility, or I make sure the facilities are accessible to everybody. We bring people to our golf courses that have never picked up a golf club before. Whether it's for sustainability efforts or it's to go bird watching or stargazing or walking your dog, or dropping your son or daughter off because they now have a summer internship learning the business of golf. So we open the doors to everybody. We make sure the communities that we serve understand that we're just not here to serve golfers, the golfing community, which, as you guys know, is a small percentage of the population. These are public lands. How do we make them accessible to everybody? We bend over backwards to partner with other nonprofits in DC, to help support them. Hey, if you need space, we're here for you. We're not going to charge you anything. You need meeting space. Come use our facility. Hey, ANCs around the city. Do you guys need to have a community meeting? Come to our facility. Again, we're not going to charge you. We don't want anything for this. We understand these are public lands. In DC, it's a little different than maybe a county or a state. We're obviously in DC proper, but these are federal land. It's not going anywhere. These golf courses are not going anywhere. So that argument, it doesn't hold as much water as it could in another locale. But I get the point. I've had to fight that my entire career. It's like, hey, we could take this 200 acres and make it affordable housing. But how do we, as golf course operators, serve the broader community? Yeah, we have our core group of golfers that play our facilities, but how do we touch other communities within our community? And that's really needs to be the focus, is bringing people and understanding the value, bringing people to the facility, understanding the value of having a golf course there. So again, I use the term a community center that happens to have a golf course.
Right.
Community centers serve everybody.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So this next question is, I guess, a little more personal, but still mostly related to the National Links Trust. So, what's been the most difficult like leadership challenge that you faced while guiding like the National Links Trust through this, I guess, political uncertainty?
um, Probably the most difficult thing would be, unfortunately, you're kind of in a bubble. What's a crisis to me in the big scheme of things? You think about people and healthcare cost exploding and the cost of living being expensive, and just all the things that go on in a day, people's day-to-day lives. Trying to get somebody to focus on a golf course, it's like, come on, let's put this in perspective. So I don't necessarily know if that's a challenge, but that was one of the difficulties. It's like, all the things that I have to deal with. Yeah, I'm not necessarily focused on Rock Creek Park Golf. Like that doesn't mean anything in my everyday life. Yeah, I might know somebody that plays there and they might get affected, but at the end of the day, it's probably going to be a golf course one way or another. Um, so again, I don't know if that's necessarily a challenge. It was more just a realization that there are a million things in life happening, and we are a small, small, small part of what's going on. Not only in DC, but just in the world. I think the other thing that was a challenge is trying to keep the staff focused. There's a lot of rumors and a lot of stories, and I get calls from the team. Hey, I heard so and so was out at the golf course today. What does that mean? It's like, we can't react to everything. We can't control who shows up. I can't control what you're going to see on Twitter. Again, it's like, keep your head down, do your job. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. So I think those were the two biggest things. And then I would also say time. And when I say time, it's like, not enough hours in the day to talk to enough people to get them to understand who we are. We feel like we've done a good job of getting our story out there, but it was evident that a lot of people still didn't know who we are and what we stood for. So being able to talk to as many people as you could was challenging.
Yeah. This next question, we got to look into like the history of the course, obviously it initially being reversible.
Yeah.
And then we found like Mr. Doak's proposal. We
Mhm.
tried to email him back and forth. He was a little busy, kind of wanted to stay out of the whole thing, wanted to
Yeah.
stay out of the
I get,
hypothetical
yeah.
stuff. Um, but we were curious, looking forward like 10 or 20 years, What do you hope for East Potomac, especially with like change seeming inevitable?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, being affordable and accessible, I think is going to be the largest component. Making sure, that the hourly wage worker can still access East Potomac, so that doesn't change. I think that would be, if I'm looking 10, 20 years down the line, the most important thing to me. Obviously, the vision is going to change. The administration has their vision for what they think East Potomac should be. I would just hope and pray that, that same young person or same, now lawyer or, lobbyist who was a young Hill staffer and, only making pennies on the dollar, and that was their place to go for recreation, 20 years from now, that'll still be the case. So the affordability, accessibility component, I think are the major things for me.
That makes sense. And then I guess another question about East Potomac. If East Potomac disappeared tomorrow, like what do you think DC would lose, other than obviously the golf course itself, but what do you think the DC community and the greater, I guess, golf community in DC would lose?
Yeah, it would lose, it's a 100-year-old golf course. It was, the whole point behind it was to, um, create recreation space for the citizens of DC. So I would never be in favor, take East Potomac out of the equation, never be in favor of taking away green space from the public. For any reason. So, obviously it would be a loss. It is a historical site. You guys have looked into the history. A lot of people don't know the history of East Potomac, but understanding, the history around and its relevancy. And, the only thing I can equate it to, like I said, I've personally never been to a facility like East Potomac, but the only other thing I could equate it to, and most people don't know this, is St. Andrews. St. Andrews is a public park and it closes on Sunday so people can come out and use it as a park. That is the only thing I can equate East Potomac to. And to have to for if for God forbid if the facility was ever to go away, that loss of a community asset, a public asset, would be a travesty.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I also think it's really interesting considering the fact that wasn't East Potomac based on St. Andrews originally, but
It
the
was. So St. Andrews was originally designed as a reversible golf course.
yeah,
I think once or twice a year they still play it as a reversible golf course,
yeah,
and there's a lottery to play it.
yeah,
And it's like it goes in like seconds because everybody wants to do it. So it,
yeah,
it was designed after St. Andrews. You're 100% correct.
yeah,
Again, I've never been to St. Andrews, unfortunately, but from what I hear, the fields are very similar. There's a huge community around it. Everybody loves it. They rally around it. Um, you get golfers and non-golfers alike that go to St. Andrews, and it's very similar to East Potomac.
yeah.
Awesome. Um, well, because time permits, we had a couple extra
Sure,
questions
shoot.
more about your personal life and your
Yep.
career. I mean, starting basic, what first drew you to golf, and how did this lead you to your current work, kind of in the advocacy sphere?
Yeah. It's interesting. I didn't golf wasn't a thing for me when I grew up. I played like most kids, played basketball, baseball, played a little football. But I was a basketball player, and I had I think my first recollection of golf was watching. I happened to be in Florida on spring break, and I was at my uncle's house, and I don't remember what we were doing, but somehow the Masters was on, and I was maybe 86 and really dating myself. Um, but I watched Larry Mize chip in on 11 at Augusta and beat Greg Norman. I was like, oh, that looks cool. It's like you're hitting a little ball. I was like, how hard could that be? And then, just it just looked cool. So later on, college days, I had an uncle show up at my dad's house, and he had some golf clubs and some golf balls in the back of his car. And I was like, hey, what are those? And he handed me like 5 or 6 golf balls and a couple old blade irons. And was like, here, take them. And I had a large enough yard I could go out and hit golf balls, probably a couple hundred yards. And that's how kind of I started golf. And got out of school and didn't really know what I was doing. I had a friend that worked at a golf course, and he was like, "Hey, you're personable. Come work in the golf shop for us." So I started working in the golf shop just as a couple days a week, and got to play some free golf, which was great. And really took to the business of the game, which I really liked. And then I became an assistant professional, became a head professional, became a director of golf, became a general manager, and then I started working for municipalities, managing, a couple multiple course portfolios, and again, just really fell in love with the municipal space and what it means. And I've said this at multiple conferences that I've spoken to or spoken at. The effect that a municipal golf operator can have. If you're I brought up congressional earlier. Congressional, maybe has what, 2,000 members, and I have no idea if that's right or wrong. Well, let's just say that every member's it's a family of two, so that's 4,000 people that you're affecting in a year. We play at East Potomac 160,000 rounds of golf a year, plus multiple multipliers of unique visitors that just come from any golf, that just come to eat, that just come to rest, that just come to the driving range. So it's hundreds of thousands of people I get to affect on an annual basis. And to me, that's why I stay in this space, because I can really affect change on a broader level, and not just the golfing community, but the community as a whole, by what we're doing. We've to date we've put three kids in college, 4-year scholarships, tuition, and housing through our golf courses in DC. Not everybody can say that, and not especially not on a municipal level. That's going to be those are life-changing events for those kids. Be able to walk out with a degree and not have to think about how am I going to pay off this $250,000. And they all did that through our programming in Washington, D.C. So, not to mention the hundreds of employees we employ every day, not to mention the smiling faces that leave East Potomac, Langston, and Rock Creek after a nice round of golf. So the positive effect that we can have on the community through this game is why I continue to do what I do.
Yeah, and I guess the next question is sort of related to that, but is there like a specific moment or a specific experience that like really led you to believe that public golf is really important and something like worth fighting for in the community?
Yeah, another great question. I've talked about this a lot too. When I was my first job was assistant. When I started working, I mentioned I worked in that as a part-time pro shop clerk and became an assistant at that facility. I hosted, or the facility hosted, a boys and girls club from the inner city, and my job was to play host. So I remember standing outside when the yellow school bus pulled up from the boys and girls club, and the first young man walked off the bus, and he couldn't have been more 7, 8 years old. Literally put his feet on the ground. He looked around. His eyes were as wide as they could be, and he looked at me and goes, "I've never seen this much green grass in my life." And that was kind of the epiphany moment for me. It's like, okay, we need to broaden this game, and we need to open it up to everybody. And it doesn't mean you're going to become a lifelong golfer or become a member of a club or play every day or become a professional, but at least give people access to these facilities. I heard Tom Coyne say something, and I've kind of stolen it from him, but I heard him talk one time, and he talked about when the game migrated from Europe or from England, or 150 years ago. He said, in Europe they have um, golf courses where everybody has access to the golf course, but you can't necessarily be a member of the club. So the club was really tightly controlled. Everybody didn't have access. They took the elite of the elite as you were to be part of the club, but a lot of people could play the golf course. When the game came over to the United States, we put barriers around the golf course and the club. So we made it even more exclusive than it was in Europe. And I feel like we just need to kind of tear down some of those barriers, and everybody should get access to the golf courses and the clubs for that matter. And the logo I'm wearing, it's Old Barnwell down in South Carolina, and their mission is very similar to ours. They just do it on a private level. They want everybody to have access to their club, no matter what your financial status is. They do some great things with female golfers, young aspiring tour pros, giving them places to live, places to practice. It's just a really cool thing. Really doing great work in the community. So those are the kind of things that I'm attracted to.
I guess one last question. You may have already given us one of these, but what has been like the most rewarding moment for you personally during your work with probably East Potomac specifically?
Um, I wouldn't say there's one thing. yeah, there's not necessarily one thing I'm, you know, that's the most rewarding. I think it's great to just, to be able to see all the people that use the facility. That's kind of rewarding to me. We've constantly made improvements to that facility over the years. I think it's great when people stop us. And I mentioned this earlier. I had been playing here for 30 years or whatever it might be, and it's the best condition the golf course has ever been in. Those sort of things are great to hear. It's great to see the staff that really love and cherish that place, and it's home for those folks. It's a home away from home. I think those are the most rewarding things, just to see the facility get used, see the facility appreciated. The love that people have for East Potomac is it's heartwarming. So yeah, I wouldn't say there's one thing, but it's, you put all that together and it's a lot. So
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. Is there anything else?
Thank you so much for
yeah,
being with us. Really appreciate this.
yeah, my
Um,
pleasure.
yeah.
I think that's yeah. Sorry, we woke up like an hour ago, so
That's okay. It's all good, man. Well, let me know if you guys need anything else from me. Happy to, help if I can. I know I think you said your report's due Friday. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
in
yeah.
between now and then, if I can answer anything else for you, let me know.
Yeah, we
Thank you
really
so
appreciate
much.
it. Thank you so
All right,
much.
guys, have a good one.
You
Take care.
too.